We were doing hours by then. And during that period, I guess by now we're in 1977, and Av Weston, my bête noire, and the news division had remarried. Guess he didn't hate women anymore. He became very friendly, but nevertheless, Tom Wolfe, at one point called everybody together, all of his producers, and said that he, Tom Wolfe, was being replaced by Av Weston, at which point I thought, again, I'm going to be in trouble. Poor Tom is gone. I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but he did leave. Weston came in. I was in the middle of producing a documentary, which he asked to see, and he said, yeah, it's great, looking good. So after that, he and I had no trouble. I don't know what happened, but he was a very ambitious guy and had overstepped his ambition at some point. And what happened was he got fired. Bill Sheehan had been, who had replaced Jesse Zausmer in '66, he had been a correspondent, and he and I had always been friendly. I knew him when we were both correspondents, so he's president of News now, of News. And there was a vacancy. There was nobody in charge of the documentary unit. So Bill called me over and he said, oh, we have to replace Av. And he said, there are a couple people interested in the job. Do you know so-and-so and so-and-so? And I said, yeah. I said, well, they're okay. Not great, but they're okay. And then he looked at me and he said, could you do it? And as I said earlier, I always said I could do it. Somebody says, can you do it? Yeah, I said, of course I can do it. So this is 76, maybe it was 76. Yeah, I guess it was 76. I am named Vice President, Director of Documentaries, another first. This one got a lot of attention. And I think the reason that they did it was the timing was better. The timing was good. It made ABC look like, very liberated, very smart network. Plus the fact, big deal, the documentary department was not a major moneymaker. In fact, it was a money loser. There were 9 vice presidents in news. I was one of 9. Of course, I knew everybody. I'd been there for a long time. So it was not a dangerous thing for them to do, but it was commendable.
What was the reaction of your news colleagues on your appointment?
Well, depended on who they were. I mean, most people thought it was great. They really did. So I got nothing but, congratulations from all over the place. So it was, it was a good thing. Well, I had to run the department. I had to, work out what we would do, what documentaries we would do. I had to see which producers in the department were assigned. Unfortunately, I had to deal with salaries, and if there were cutbacks, I had to deal with that. I didn't like that part. But I had a very congenial relationship with Bill Sheehan, so when documentaries were ready, as Lauer used to screen them for Tom Wolfe, Bill would come and look at the documentaries, sometimes quibble about stuff, and we would, make changes if we had to. But everything was working out okay. Then, as it happens in television, Bill Sheehan is replaced by Roone Arledge from sports, the most sexist department, the area where the women's group at ABC got the most complaints. Here he comes, Mr. Sports, to run ABC News. Who had done some documentaries that most people thought were not legitimate work at all. I thought this was really bad news that he came, and it turned out to be bad news because as I had dealt with Bill Sheehan and gotten regular responses when I said, here's a list of documentaries that we'd like to do, what do you think? Arledge never answered me. He never returned my phone calls. He was famous for that. I thought it was obnoxious. And I had no contact with him whatsoever. We would put our shows together. They would air. He once called me and said, "Good job," which I practically fainted from. But mostly he wouldn't talk to me. He was interested in celebrity, and one of the people in my department was married to a New York Times columnist. That was Pam Hill, who was married to Tom Wicker. And those were the kinds of people that Arledge liked, well-known people. And that my husband was a public television certainly didn't count for anything, and who was I anyway? So things were made increasingly uncomfortable for me. In fact, I knew my time was limited there.
You think it came from him?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there were moves afoot that Pam Hill was meeting with him, and it was, rumors, and the fact that I had no relationship with this man at all was not good. But anyway, there was a point where I was to be moved into a slightly different position, and Pam, was going to basically take it over. He said, I want you to stay, but you have to do the such and such. I said, okay, well, I'll think about it. And went home and said, here, my poor husband, by then my son, listening to yet another crisis emerging. I said, I have to get out of there. So I wrote a letter to CBS News, Bill Salant, and said, nobody respected Arledge as taking over ABC News. I said, we have a new president of news over here, and he and I are not compatible. It's not my kind of news anymore, and I would really like to come to CBS News. And much to my relief, he said, come over.